It's the 112th meeting between Georgia and Georgia Tech. The 7th-ranked Bulldogs trying to keep their playoff hopes alive, while the Yellow Jackets need a win to get bowl eligible. Georgia Tech's lone loss 2 weeks ago against Auburn, that dropped them from the #1 spot to #7, and they'll play the winner of Auburn, Alabama in the SEC championship game next week. And hi, everybody. Alongside Greg McElroy, I'm Dave Pash, Tom Lugan, Bill in a bit. Greg, Georgia has a true freshman quarterback in Jake Fromm. They've lost one game all year, but he's been helped out a lot by that great stable of running backs, one of the best in college football.
Yeah, just as a 1-2 punch. I don't know if you can find a better duo in the entire country between what Sony Michel and Nick Chubb do, and it's in large part due to the way they complement each other. Nick Chubb, more of the prototypical between the tackles type of runner, loves the power eye, loves to run downhill, and Sony Michel with his versatility as a pass catcher and on the perimeter, they really pick up each other in areas of weaknesses. They're a fun duo to watch, and they're a big reason why Georgia controls its fate with the college football playoff.
The Governor's Cup trophy and so much more on the line today. Georgia has won the last 8 meetings in Atlanta. Get ready for some clean, old-fashioned hate. Let's bring in the 3rd member of our crew, Tom Luganville.
Well, guys, Georgia head coach Kirby Smart, you know that he's a defensive guy, but he'll also admit he doesn't have all the answers to stopping Georgia Tech's triple option. But what he has admitted to is they cut block in practice. They prepare for what's coming from Georgia Tech's offense. On top of that, they just don't prepare for the triple option, guys, during the week of the Georgia Tech game. It's also during each and every week of the season. They set aside an option period to work various elements of this offense so they can prepare for it on an important weekend just like this before the SEC championship game.
And we're going to see Taquan Marshall, the Georgia Tech quarterback, and the Yellow Jacket offense momentarily. Georgia won the toss, elected to defer. Can Georgia win today and then win at Mercedes-Benz Stadium just down the road next week to make the college football playoff? Can Georgia Tech get bowl eligible? The Yellow Jackets lost the game against UCF because of the hurricane. They have not been able to make it up. A spectacular day in Atlanta. Temperature in the mid-60s. This game has been sold out since August. And Georgia Tech standing in the way of a possible playoff spot for the Georgia Bulldogs. Blankenship will kick off to Jerry Howard. And Howard had a little trouble with it, and he scoops up in the end zone, but he's got to get out of there. He did. They're going to mark him down at the 1-yard line. Christian Payne was down there for the Bulldogs. A horrific start for the Yellow Jackets.
I have never seen starting field position this poor. On an opening kickoff, anxiety, anticipation, rivalry weekend, you misplayed the opening kickoff, and now your quarterback's going to start with his toes in the end zone on the first snap of the game against one of the best defenses in the land.
That's a good point.
The receiver gave an invalid fair catch signal. He possessed the ball in the end zone. By rule, when he possesses the ball, the play is dead. The play results in a touchback. First down for Georgia Tech.
That's a good point.
20-yard line.
The first time he touched the ball was in the end zone. So it works out where even he's not trying to signal for a fair catch.
It works out in their favor. Clearly, you can see he's just trying to shade, or it looks like he's trying to shade from the sun that's directly in his eye. But right there, he doesn't possess the ball until he's fully in the end zone. Of course, with the fair catch, as soon as he possesses it, the ball is dead. And right there, that's first possession. That's a good job by the officials, and a huge break for Georgia Tech early in this game.
Are we in for something wild to happen today?
I think
I mean, when something like that happens,
every rivalry weekend's wild.
but you think you're going to start on the 1 and then a heartbeat later because of a mistake on a bad catch signal, you end up with a touchback. Taquan Marshall, excellent athlete in Hamilton, Georgia, ran track, obviously played football. He's 13 yards to break the school record for rushing yards by a quarterback. He's got 1,074 in the season. That's number 2 in the ACC behind Lamar Jackson. 2nd and 6 on the Tech 29. Marshall pitching it. And Cersei wrapped up. Roquan Smith, the leading tackler for Georgia, a terrific linebacker. Butkus candidate, makes the play.
And Roquan Smith's a guy that we'll keep our eye on all day long. He's going to be following the football. If you were to rank the levels of importance on this defense, Roquan Smith would be number 1. Maybe not the most talented guy on the defense because there's a lot of elite players amongst that Georgia group. But Roquan Smith, from a production standpoint and understanding what the defensive coordinator Mel Tucker wants, has been outstanding this year.
3rd and 5. And Marshall keeping it, able to break a tackle and get the first down out to the 40-yard line.
Great job by Taquan Marshall right here. Little lead option with some pullers out in front. He sees that Georgia does a good job of cutting off that perimeter run lane. He goes north and south, understands how far he has to get, falls forward for a big first down.
Georgia Tech, number 4 in the country in rushing, number 2 in passing yards per completion. They don't throw it often, but when they do, it's down the field. Marshall with the pitch. Georgia's all over it. Lynch hog-tied by Roquan Smith again.
I tell you, Greg, it's very clear that Georgia does not want this ball to get to the perimeter. They are leveraging the football to spill it to the outside, to force that ball to the sideline. That's why there was such success with Taquan Marshall on that inside run, taking advantage of the over pursuit. I would expect Paul Johnson here to start going back to the inside run game.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tom. That fullback dive is paramount when trying to keep this defense honest.
So a loss of 1, 2nd down and 11. And met at the point of attack is Cottrell, able to get a couple of yards. Jonathan Ledbetter and John Atkins up front for Georgia. It'll be 3rd and long.
And this is what you can't have if you're Georgia Tech. You cannot, under any circumstances, get tackled behind the sticks and lose yardage on your first down play. Because then you're playing and operating at a very difficult point when you're off rhythm. Because right now, on 3rd and long, this is not going to be an area in which Georgia Tech's going to have a lot of success against a defense like this.
Marshall, a rare pass. And it is incomplete through the hands of Brad Stewart. So it's 4th down. And Georgia Tech will have to punt. Tech won in Athens last year by a point. They were down 2 scores in the 4th quarter. They won in Athens back in 2014, but they have not been able to beat Georgia here in Atlanta since 1999. Presley Harvin, a 240-pound punter. It's scooped up on the 11 by Hardman. He's got running room. Hardman past the 30-yard line. Great return for Michel Hardman, one of the top returners in the SEC, 38 yards. Good starting field position for Jake Fromm in Georgia when we return. Jake Fromm, the Georgia quarterback, a true freshman from Warner Robins, Georgia. In high school, only Deshaun Watson had more passing yards in Georgia history. Originally committed to Alabama when Kirby Smart was there as the D coordinator. And in the 2011 Little League World Series, he had 3 home runs and struck out 8 batters while playing for the Warner Robins team. Became the 2nd Georgia quarterback to start as a true freshman on the road. Eric Zaire was the other back in '91. Fromm's debut was in South Bend, and he won the game. First down on the Georgia 39-yard line, and they're going to hand it off to Sony Michel. Michel over 800 yards on the season. Chubb is over 1,000, and that's a gain of about 6 on first down.
They are so good in the backfield with both Chubb and Michel. And don't forget the freshman, DeAndre Swift, who does so many different things for him. If you look at the top 3 or 4 running backs against Georgia, They're as good as anybody in college football.
They've never had two backs with 1,000 yards in the same season. Michel has a chance to get that. And on an end around, it's Hardman getting the first down. You see the Jets of Michel Hardman again into Tech territory to the 49.
Greg, lots of substitution here. They've gone with a bunch of different packages the first couple of plays, and what a nightmare it is to have to defend Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, and Michel Hardman all on the field at the same time.
Now it's just Michel in the backfield on first down at the Georgia Tech 49. Georgia bounced back from that loss against Auburn by thumping Kentucky a week ago. Michel again, and look at all that movement at the line of scrimmage down to the 41, an 8-yard pickup.
Sony Michel has done so many things over the course of his career. Early in his career, as a freshman, he was used a lot as a wide receiver and also kind of as a perimeter run back. The between the tackles rushing for Sony Michel has improved dramatically over the last 4 years, and I think most NFL scouts view him as an extremely intriguing prospect as he transitions to the next level.
They give it to Swift, and he has another Georgia first down. I think the other cool story, Greg, about Michel and Chubb is that they're best friends. They're competitors, but they're best friends. They room together. I think, too, both guys have dealt with some major injuries, and that has to bring you closer together when you're rehabbing together. Chubb had that awful knee injury a couple years ago. Michel has fractured his shoulder blade twice. And missed tackles by Georgia Tech, a big problem in their loss last week. Big problem all season. Fromm with time, and it's almost intercepted. Corey Griffin again had a beat on it. Fromm a little off so far.
Really well played by Corey Griffin. This is a play that Georgia runs an awful lot of. It's called the double post. You have one guy inside trying to hold that interior defender. Griffin didn't stay with that guy down the middle. He recognized and saw the eyes of Fromm work outside. He drifted underneath him and almost got himself an interception in the red zone.
Fromm has thrown 15 or fewer pass attempts in 6 games this year, so it is a run-heavy offense. Here's Chubb on the cutback. Another broken tackle. And Chubb to the 20-yard line. And fans are cheering that are Georgia Tech fans when it's a 5-yard run, because they're just happy to get these guys to the ground.
Yeah, it takes a whole defensive unit to bring these running backs down. Seldom will they be brought down by first contact. Another example, though, where an incompletion on first down. Nice positive play to make this third down more manageable. And you have your entire playbook available to you, whether you want to run it or throw it. You have both those options here on 3rd and 5.
They don't throw it a lot to their backs, though. Fromm steps up. His pass is caught. It's Hardman, and it's another Georgia first down. It's been about a 6-minute drive. Georgia moving down the field into the red zone.
Georgia's thinking, well, we're on offense. We might as well hold the ball, because we know if we give it back to Georgia Tech, they can be a ball control offense and eat some clock. So Georgia's got to be pretty methodical when you're playing against a triple option team. You got to understand situations. You got to watch the clock and count the snaps as well for your defense.
Play 11 of the drive. One-on-one coverage on the back shoulder throw. It's pulled in by Wims, and he's ruled out of bounds at the 1. He also dropped the ball when he went out of bounds, but they felt that he had secured it to the ground before he popped up and the ball came out.
He clearly has control of the ball. Good job. Good concentration by Wims. That's well covered on the perimeter. It really is.
That's a touchdown.
I stepped on him.
Should be a touchdown, right?
Just depends on where that ball was. It's across the plane.
It's Chubb, and he's in. Touchdown, Georgia. Number 13 on the season for Nick Chubb.
It's a great drive by this Georgia Bulldog offense. Mix some pass, mix some rush, resulting in a touchdown. 12 plays, 5.5 minutes. and 61 yards for pay dirt.
And they mixed it up too. 5 passing plays, 6 running plays. It's 7-0 Bulldogs here in Atlanta. Penalty marker thrown late.
They're loving the start here in Atlanta. The Bulldogs. Early lead here in Atlanta.
20 young men honored today on Senior Day, including Matthew Jordan, who is a junior, who's a backup quarterback, but he's not going to play football anymore after the season, so he went out with the other seniors today. Tech has won 2 of the last 3 meetings. The last senior class to defeat Georgia 3 times in 4 years. You got to go back to 98 to 2001. Tech has not lost at home this year. They have not lost, or not won away from Bobby Dodd Stadium this season. 1-point losses to Tennessee and Miami. 4 of their losses, they're up by 2 or more scores in the game. Paul Johnson told us on the phone yesterday, been a disappointing season. They can still make a bowl game. Omari Jarrett, a different return man this time. Marshall, late pitch, and Cersei dumped by Roquan Smith. It's so hard to get outside Smith, the leading tackler for the 2nd straight year for Georgia. To the right there, you see the top 6. Auburn with 2 losses. Obviously, they need to win today against Alabama, win next week. Tom was saying to me, he thinks if Auburn wins the next 2, they should be number 1 in the country, even with 2 losses.
Wow. I don't know about that, but
I don't know. You beat 2 number 1 ranked teams in 1 season.
That's true.
If you beat Georgia twice and Alabama in a month, I think that's pretty good. Pass on the money to Ricky June, their best receiver, and they can't bring him down. Carries a convoy with him to the 36-yard line. 27-yard pass play. That'll get the crowd into it here. Jackets are on the move, but they trail 7-0 to Georgia. Back after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
You can see him right now.
Look at this alignment, guys.
He's lined up kind of like a tailback on defense, so they try to hide him there. Cersei reversing field. And they finally get him to the ground to the 40-yard line, so it's only a 3-yard run. Lorenzo Carter on the tackle. Georgia Tech has not scored in more than 3 quarters going back to the 1st quarter of the Duke game. They're at 5-5, so they need a win to get bowl eligible. They're averaging just a yard per play so far in this game.
One thing that this offense really hasn't had is consistency on the downfield passing attack. That's an area in which Taquan Marshall, as he goes into the offseason, is really going to have to advance with his consistency.
Marshall pitching it. And Lynch able to keep his feet in bounds. He paid for it, though. He got hit hard by Reed, but did a great job to tiptoe the sideline. It'll be 3rd and 1.
You might want to take a look at this. You can see as he's trying to tightrope that sideline, it's awfully close. You can see right there that left foot does in fact land on the white. A couple yards before where they marked it.
Excellent blocking downfield as Benson gets the 1st down. We talk about the cut blocks. It's not just in the box. It's out on the perimeter with receivers diving at the feet, the corners. And it's a 1st down for Georgia Tech to the 40-yard line.
And they do such a good job of attacking your leverage. I mean, you see, 31, Cottrell, he's not really trying to cut that much. It looks like he's trying to go down.
But it's enough to do the job.
But it's enough to get in the way and not allow the tackler to potentially get hands on the ball carrier.
And you know that the defender is thinking about that. Big hole for Benson straight ahead down to the 33.
I think that's the point, Dave, is they get so caught up in their head with trying to protect their lower half, and they can't play football on the ground, so they're being coached, you got to stay up, you got to stay up. Next thing you know, the ball's past you.
Yeah, and it's really puts so much stress on your defense when it comes to recognition, too. They can work it to the field, they can work it to the boundary, they can work it up the middle, they can throw it over your head. It's so difficult to handle and recognize on a down-by-down basis.
2nd and 3. Benson, the first man through, and he gets popped. Natrez Patrick met him behind the line of scrimmage. On a jet sweep, Lynch trying to get the speed. Just can't do that against Georgia. It's really hard with their linebackers. It's a 240-pounder, DeAndre Walker, tracking down the back at the 35-yard line. That's 4th down. Be about a 52-yard field goal try, but it looks like Paul Johnson sending in an offensive play.
Yeah, Paul Johnson, I don't think it was ever in doubt. This was 4-down territory, knowing part of the field that they're in. But it's a lot tougher 4th down when your 3rd down gains nothing. See who they try to target and which part of the field they try to attack here in a critical 4th and 4.
One pass so far from Marshall, only 108 on the season. 4th and 4. Marshall will throw here. Almost intercepted. Georgia will take over on downs anyway. Dominic Sanders nearly picked it off, and that would have been number 16, making him number 1 all-time in Georgia history. So they elect to go for it on 4th down. And Marshall's pass nearly ends up in the hands of Sanders. Either way, it's Georgia ball. 112 games between Georgia and Georgia Tech. The most played rivalry in college football comes up next on ABC. Wisconsin-Minnesota, 128th meeting. Paul Bunyan's axe will be at stake. Here's the Governor's Trophy, and of course bragging rights for the next 12 months. Georgia up 7-0. 1st down on the 34-yard line. Big hole, Michel. Keeps his balance. Wow. We showed you the power earlier. Here he shows some dexterity just to keep his feet moving while his upper body is towards the ground.
This is the same play they opened the game with. Just a little crisscross in the backfield between Swift and Michel. And it throws those linebackers off for Georgia Tech, resulting in a big game.
17 yards. They go back to Michel. Wrapped up at the 43-yard line by a Johnny Kerr.
Just the little things that Sony Michel does, like the end of the run right there. He's about to be tackled. He understands that. His balance is a little bit off. He decides to jump cut to his right for another 1.5 yard gain. It's the little things that Sony Michel has always done. He's so crafty with the ball in his hands. Man, he's fun to watch. So explosive as a ball carrier.
Jim Chaney, the offensive coordinator, has done such a good job of balancing the carries. Here's Chubb getting the call, and he gets a 1st down. I mean, Chubb's had some games where he's only carried it 12 to 15 times. Same with Michel. These are guys that have had a lot of carries over the course of their careers at Georgia. Plus injuries have obviously played a major role for both of them.
Yeah, they might not get a ton of carries. You referenced Michel. I mean, he had 6 carries against Florida for 140 yards. So, I mean, it's not counting the carries. It's making the carries count, correct? And it's exactly what these 2 running backs have done over the course of their careers.
On the 36-yard line. Here's the quarterback keeping it. Nobody thought Fromm would hang on to the ball there. And he has a huge running lane to the sideline for 14 yards. Mark him out at the 21.
They kind of rock you to sleep with their handoffs. Of course, you can see flying inside. Victor Alexander takes the running back, and there he is. Jake Fromm just pulling it. Little zone read. And he sees some green grass on the outside. He's not the most electric runner, but he's serviceable enough to pick up needed yardage when they have to have it in the zone read game.
Off play action from looking middle. Wide open touchdown, Javon Wims. They can't take that one away.
Run, 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 play action as you approach the red zone. They go with a triple post instead of a double post this time. Wims is left one-on-one against Lawrence Austin in the slot, and he reels it in for a touchdown.
Had the one in the first quarter where he tried to extend over the plane of the end zone. It looked like he did. They ruled that he didn't. This one will count. That's his 6th touchdown catch. Fromm's 18th touchdown pass.
The Georgia Bulldogs are known for their ground and pound attack. But don't forget about their true freshman phenom, Jake Fromm. So Wims, 14-zip Dogs.
14-0. Georgia in front of Georgia Tech after a Jake Fromm touchdown pass. If the Dogs win today and then beat either Alabama or Auburn next week, the SEC title game, they'll be in the college football playoffs. Bulldog fans making themselves known. They're up on their feet right now. Marshall gets out of there, and he's able to break a tackle and get a first down, and then maybe a late hit. Sanders knocked him out of bounds, but he was able to hold up in time. 17-yard run for Taquan Marshall.
That's a great job by Taquan Marshall. Nothing there as he moves to his right. He gets back to the left, and he's had success doing this. When he's dropping back and you see the defenders running out underneath some of the passing lanes, he's been able to take off and pick up some big yardage like there. Which converting on a 3rd and long. I thought the hit was a little late.
Yeah, I did too.
I thought he was clearly getting ready to head out of bounds. He was about a half yard out of bounds when Sanders delivered the blow.
I'm surprised Georgia Tech's sideline didn't get a little bit more amped up. Usually you can influence officials when you go crazy on something like that, and they didn't react.
Good point, Dave.
I'm due one every now and then. Here's Marshall with a pitch, and Cersei knocked down at the 44-yard line. Aaron Davis wrapping him up low, and the Natrez Patrick hitting him high. Davis is a former walk-on, and he's a candidate for the Burlsworth Trophy, which goes to a former walk-on.
He is a candidate, but I think that Baker Mayfield might have that one wrapped up alongside some other awards and some other hardware in the weeks to come. But he's been good for him. He really has. A guy that isn't talked about enough and probably a little underappreciated in this defensive group.
On 2nd and 7, Marshall grabbed at the line of scrimmage by DeAndre Walker, but he was able to get a couple yards, so he got a huge 3rd down here. Georgia went for it on 4th down on last possession when they were at the 35-yard line. Georgia Tech did of Georgia. We'll see if Yellow Jackets are thinking 4-down territory here, even though there's 5 minutes to go in the first half. I don't know if they can stop Georgia's offense.
Yeah, I think that this is not 4-down territory since you're on your side of the 50. The last time they had 4th and short, they opted to throw it. Expect them to try to keep it on the ground here.
First things first, 3rd and 5. Marshall pitch to Cottrell, and he's able to get the first down, keep his feet in play, and they finally track him down to the 20-yard line. 32-yard run by the sophomore from Knoxville, Tennessee.
The first time this Georgia Tech offense has had success getting on the perimeter to the right-hand side. Cottrell out in space, tight roping that sideline. Keep an eye, making sure he stayed in bounds right there. It was close, but I think he did.
On 1st down, they run Kervonte Benson, who's a 1,000-yard rusher this season, a sophomore from Marietta, Georgia. He came in with 0 career attempts, and he's been a workhorse this year. The last time Georgia Tech has been scoreless in 4 consecutive quarters, you got to go back to 2008. And Paul Johnson's been here 10 years. Even though it's an offense that's different, doesn't mean it's not productive.
Right. No, they have been productive. It's different. But they are definitely right now struggling over the last 4 quarters, being successful and consistent. Huge opportunity for him here in the red zone.
Option to the right. Marshall pitching it. Inside the 15 is J.J. Green, the former Georgia Bulldog, who transferred to Georgia Tech to finish out his career.
You could see Georgia's defense, one of the best in college football against the run. Now, most running attacks aren't created equally. This one certainly unique. So don't get too enamored with the stat book when it comes to the clean, old-fashioned hate game, that's for sure. Rushing yards usually picked up in bunches.
On 3rd and 1, Marshall keeps it. And looks like he's got it to the 9. Roquan Smith on the stop, but it will be 1st and goal for Georgia Tech. All of their timeouts remaining. 2.5 or so on the clock, so they can take their time here. Take as much off the clock as they can so Georgia doesn't have time to operate with when they get it back.
Greg, the difference between this drive and the previous drives for Georgia Tech is they haven't had negative plays on early downs. Gotten them in 3rd and short, convert for another fresh set of downs right here.
Cottrell dragged down at the 6-yard line by J.R. Reed, whose dad Jake, longtime NFL tight end. Wide receiver. Uncle is Dale Carter. Great DB.
You look at Georgia Tech, too. I know it's only 2nd down, but you have to be thinking more than likely it's going to be 4-down territory. To try to pick up 3 here and then maybe 2 on the next and then potentially go for it on 4th. That's got to be their line of thinking because field goals is not going to get them back into this game.
Marshall in trouble in the backfield. Well, that certainly hurts now what you're thinking with regard to whether to kick if you get in 4th down because you're 3rd and goal on the 10. So what do they run here?
Just surprised to see them go with some misdirection right there. They've had some success on this drive, just running some of their base principles. Right there, they go away from it. They lose on the backside, and it results in a 4-yard loss. Tom mentioned it. You can't have lost yardage plays when you run an offense like this. You're just not built to dig yourself out of a hole when you're out of rhythm offensively.
3rd and goal for Georgia Tech. Marshall to the air. Got a receiver wide open. Touchdown, Ricky June. The one guy, if you're Georgia, you can't leave open. Six touchdown catches on the year for June. 12 plays, 75-yard drive. 14-7 Georgia.
What a huge play for Georgia Tech. Trying to find some room on the perimeter. They send Ricky June. You're going to see a little collision in the secondary. Clearly not on the same page. As Marshall went back to pass, they didn't pass it off correctly because of the action of the 2 wide receivers who crisscrossed there at the top of the end zone. Uncovered leads to touchdown, and there is life on Techwood Drive. Quan Marshall to his #1 target, Ricky June, to cut this lead in half.
Hardman past the 25. Slammed to the ground at the 29-yard line. Here's Sony Michel off the left side. And fist fighting with a defender. Taken down at the 40-yard line. They'll stop the clock to call a timeout here for Georgia. I think it's Alabama losing, because if Alabama loses and let's say Georgia wins the SEC championship game, are you going to keep a 1-loss Alabama team out even if they didn't play in the SEC championship game, kind of like Ohio State last year?
Well, that would be a challenge, but look at it the other way. Look at it as if Alabama goes into the SEC championship game and were to lose it, to say, to Georgia, all right? And now you're going to look at taking both of those teams.
Yeah, either way, you could potentially have 2 1-loss SEC teams that have legitimate resumes that would warrant inclusion in the college football playoff. It obviously depends a little bit on what happens in the ACC, and does Clemson take care of business tonight against South Carolina? And if they beat Miami, that becomes kind of a play-in game, Miami and Clemson in the ACC championship game more than likely. What happens to Wisconsin? I mean, it's going to get very interesting. If there's some chaos and some matchups that go in a direction that we don't anticipate, then the committee's going to have their work cut out for them.
Georgia still has 2 timeouts. And they've got a kicker who's got a strong leg. Fromm with a long throw that's caught by Riley Ridley. Calvin Ridley, of Alabama's younger brother. And he's out of bounds at the 47-yard line, so the clock will stop with 25 seconds left. They need to get to about the 33-yard line for Rodrigo Blankenship as long as 49. They have 2
Probably
timeouts.
get to the 35 or the 36 too. Understand there's not really much wind, and it's an end of half situation. So if you want to back that distance up a little bit more, you can.
Another pass play. Look at all the time for Fromm. Dumping it off to Isaac Nauta. They tackle him inbounds. That'll force Georgia to call a timeout. Good play by Jalen Johnson. So ball on the 43-yard line. Kirby Smart is irate, I think, with Nauta not running out of bounds. And that field goal line, the target line is in place based on history. Blankenship's long of 49. Georgia Tech rushes 4. Fromm finds an open receiver. Wims to the 20-yard line. It's a 23-yard pass play. Georgia electing to hold the timeout and spike the ball to take the clock down to 3 seconds. So it's just the kick and then halftime.
Yeah, Kirby Smart very upset because Fromm was under center for a good 3 or 4 seconds before he snapped the ball and got the spike. They could have potentially tried to run one more play with about 9 seconds left or 10 seconds left. Instead, it gets all the way down to 3 seconds left, and this will be the last snap of the half, more than likely.
Although Georgia has a timeout, if there's an issue with the snap, Blankenship for 3. And it's perfect. That's big after Georgia Tech got a momentum-shifting touchdown for the Bulldogs to march down the field and get points. Pushing and shoving after the play. Kirby Smart pointing at one of the Georgia Tech players saying he started it. Georgia will get the ball to start the second half. Capital One halftime report coming up after the break, after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Georgia in front at Georgia Tech by 10. 17-7. Bulldogs win today and then beat either Alabama or Auburn in the SEC title game, and rest assured they'll be in the college football playoff. Let's look at our first half stats brought to you by Overwatch. Georgia Tech, time of possession, dominated. And the difference for Georgia was a late field goal. Made it a 10-point game, and now the short kickoff trying to force a turnover. Ball is on the ground. Looked like Georgia got it back, and the Bulldogs did at the 23-yard line. And Georgia takes over and hands the ball off on first. Jake Fromm, true freshman quarterback, had an outstanding campaign. They run Chubb off the right side, and he's too hard to stop. Gain of 12, first down. Kirby Smart played defensive back at Georgia, one of 9 head coaches of the Power 5 to coach at their alma mater. He was an all-SEC first-team player back in 1998 at Georgia. And then a longtime assistant for Nick Saban, including at Alabama, where he won 4 national championships.
He's done a tremendous job in a very short period of time getting this team to the point that they're at.
Chubb to the outside. Lowers the shoulder out at the 42. I mean, you look at what Mark Richt is doing at Miami, and clearly Mark Richt is an excellent coach. They felt at Georgia that it was time for a different voice, a different style. And last year was rough. I mean, they were not good last year, but it's been a quick turnaround.
It really has, and it really started in February of this year. The recruiting group that they brought in, the freshmen that are already playing big-time minutes, even along the offensive line where you don't see that very often. He's going to transform this program quickly.
Chubb met behind the line. It's going to be a loss in the play. And Branch back there along with Santa Moore. It'll be third down.
And I was with Kirby for 4 years, and I just think the world of him. I really do. The way he engages with every single player on the team. He doesn't work as much with the offense. Naturally, his background's on the defensive side of the football. But such hands-on coaching, always teaching and he's a tremendous motivator as well. Not surprised at all to see Georgia in the position they're in this early, even though most would say that they're a year away. This roster, the way they're coached and how talented they are, they can play with anybody.
Ground to the air on 3rd and 4, and it's pulled in by Wims again. There's just no pressure at all, so Fromm stands back there, and it's just one-on-one, and Wims going to win that every time. It's a gain of 16.
And when Kirby got the job, he said, look, don't necessarily evaluate me this first year. Evaluate me in February. And Tom, he's done a tremendous job on the recruiting front as well.
Well, he has. You know, there's a lot of true freshmen that were in that last class that are in there too deep, that are getting valuable snaps. And listen, he's making his mark in state, and that's what this Georgia fan base wants. They want the best in state to stay in red and black.
Another deep ball from Hardman, pulls it in inside the 5-yard line. 38 yards, setting up Georgia first and goal inside the 5.
Michel Hardman going up and making a very contested catch. Once a defensive back has moved over to the offensive side, and he has not looked back. He's so explosive and fast. And now he's added this to his repertoire as well. Very capable with the ball in his hands. And really good high-pointing the football.
Give Jake Fromm a lot of credit, too, here. He replaced Jacob Eason, who started all the games last year as a freshman. Fromm comes in against Notre Dame and has not looked back. Michel bouncing it to the outside. What a great cut! He scores! Touchdown, Georgia! Twisted ankles today from Georgia Tech DBs trying to stop that guy.
He is just so elusive. Look at how sudden his feet stop. Boom. Just brush him to the side and jog into the end zone. At 215 pounds, he moves so effortlessly side to side. He has been so special over the last few years.
And the extra point is good. Michel closing in on 900 yards this season. Chubb is already over 1,000. And Georgia trying to win in Atlanta against Georgia Tech for the 9th straight time. And it's looking good right now for Jake Fromm and company. That was cool to see the Georgia players in a road game taking time to visit the Children's Hospital of Atlanta. There's Jake Fromm, the quarterback. They pass Greg McElroy, Tom Luganville in Atlanta, and the Bulldogs are in command right now. 24-7 they lead. They hang on here and then win the SEC championship game next week. You can bet they'll be in the college football playoff. It'll either be Alabama or Auburn, the winner of the Iron Bowl. Jerry Howard, who's had trouble fielding kickoffs, knocked out of bounds at the 20. 2 more on this roster, and Chubb, Michel, maybe more, maybe Swift as well before it's all said and done. Quay Cersei wrapped up as Georgia just flies to the ball. Gain of 2. Taco Bell, a proud partner of the college football playoff. Be on the lookout for Taco Bell student sections and passionate fans like these at games all season long. Georgia Tech in danger of falling to 5-6, which would mean no bowl game unless there aren't enough teams that qualify. Then 5 and 7 teams can get into the mix. This doesn't feel like a 5 and 7 team. They lose by 1 to Tennessee, 1 to Miami. Hang with Clemson on the road. Marshall gives the ball up. He got drilled as he let it go to Cottrell. Aaron Davis with a big hit. They consider on those pitch plays Marshall a defenseless player. Let's see if this was a clean hit.
Just pushed him in the chest. It's a clean hit for sure. Once again, this Georgia defense has this Georgia Tech offense in a difficult spot on 3rd and long. They've been really good for a majority of the day on 1st and 2nd down, which is crucial against an attack like this.
How many plays in the playbook for 3rd and 7 for Georgia Tech? Marshall rolling out and thrown out of play by Roquan Smith. Man, have we seen a performance at linebacker this year? We've got him up here at 13 tackles, loss of 7.
I promise you it's more than that. It certainly feels that way. There's Roquan Smith, number 3. You see him drop into coverage, and he recognizes as soon as Taquan Marshall leaves that throwing posture, that's when he triggers, and he goes right to the boundary, which is exactly where Marshall was going as well. Roquan Smith has been everywhere today for the Dogs defense.
Excellent punt. Hardman fields it on the 36-yard line. Spins out of a tackle, and then gets tattooed at the 33-yard line. 47-yard punt, not much on the return. But Georgia's in full control of this game midway through the 3rd. Press set it downs for Georgia with a 17-point lead from the 43-yard line. Chubb to midfield for 7 yards.
You guys, in this class in particular, you know, and Greg and I have touched on this with quarterbacks. You take a look at Justin Fields, ESPN's .com's #1 ranked overall player. Now, this is a completely different dynamic than what they've had with Jacob Eason and Jake Fromm. This is a tremendous athlete, but he's not an athlete that can just run the spread. He's a thrower and a pure passer that happens to be a great athlete. So I just love the fact that he invites the competition. He's not worried about the depth chart. He commits to Georgia knowing exactly what they have, and he doesn't care.
Chubb able to get the first down.
Now, offensive coordinator Jim Chaney, when he first got here, and I was talking to him in pregame warm-up about some guys in the 2019 class, you know, they want to be more athletic. They want to be more dynamic. And, Greg, you know, we've seen Jake Fromm today just sneaky enough with his athleticism to where if he pulls the ball, you're not ready for it. What Georgia wants to do is they want to force the defense on each and every snap to have to defend the quarterback at all times. And that's the type of talent skill set that Justin Fields brings that maybe they haven't had before since, like, let's say, DJ Shockley.
Michel, more missed tackles by Georgia Tech. That's been the story the last few weeks for the Yellow Jackets, and Georgia getting way too much on the ground on first down. That's 8 yards.
Yeah, Sony Michel so difficult to bring down, but touching more on what Tom was talking about with Justin Fields coming in, Jake Eason, one of the top quarterbacks at the high school level a couple years ago. The backup now, Jake Fromm, one of the top guys last year. You go where you want to go. And then, you know what? Hey, I'm going to do my best, you do your best, and let's see who wins the job. I appreciate and applaud the young men that have chosen Georgia at the quarterback position because it's a stocked roster. But you know what? Who would have thought? Jake Fromm's under center right now.
Michel again. It's another Georgia first down. But it'll be interesting in the spring, right?
Yeah, I mean,
what happens if Georgia, you know, gets to the college football playoff? They win next week, and Jake Fromm's the guy to get you there.
Well, I think iron sharpens iron, right? Competition brings out the best in everybody. And we talked to Kirby Smart about Jacob Eason and Jake Fromm. He said, look, the competition's actually still gone on. Even though Jake Fromm's been the starter, he's performed better in practice. Therefore, he started the games. The competition should never end. And I think that's what you see. When you look at the best programs, there's competition at every single starting spot.
Michel, Swift rather, on the carry that time, gets hit hard, only a 1-yard gain.
And the goal, guys, and Greg was a part of this at Alabama, is to create a roster that is so talented that the environment of competition is created by the players. The coaches don't have to monitor it. They don't have to create it. They don't have to preach it. The players will know real quickly if I'm not performing, the guy to my left and the guy to my right is every bit as good as I am, and I'm going to be on the field, on the sideline with the coach.
Yeah, that personal accountability is huge, and the way to get that is by stocking that roster full of talent.
Fromm off play action all day to throw. Overshoots Hardman, the intended receiver. 3rd and 9. Well, look, I think you guys would agree that any great program starts with an offensive line. And they've got an offensive line right now. So you've got these great backs. You got more great backs coming in next year. You got all these young quarterbacks who you can groom. And you have a defense. I mean, Georgia's here to stay.
Yeah, and there might be a year early this year. They really, with a true freshman quarterback, some young pieces in the trenches. But, man, they have played so well and poised within the system. They've had some really big moments. We're hoping to have a few more.
And Andrew Thomas at right tackle. He's a true freshman. He's played well. Big hole again. Swift off to the races. Stretching out, but won't get in. Taken out of bounds by Austin. 32-yard gain. It'll be first and goal from inside the 2.
Speaking of true freshmen, DeAndre Swift makes his presence known. Says, don't forget about me. I'm still here. And I had someone in the Georgia program that said DeAndre Swift right now as a true freshman might be our best football player. He's that versatile. And I'm really looking forward to seeing this young man. Of course, a very highly recruited player himself. And when Sony Michel and Nick Chubb depart for the NFL, there won't be much drop-off. Number 7 is the feature back.
See if they try to give him a touchdown here. Swift over the top. Touchdown, Georgia.
DeAndre Swift going vertical and landing in the end zone. Fresh legs. Pretty impressive by the freshman.
11 plays, 67-yard drive that took almost 6 minutes. 10 of the 11 plays on that drive were run plays. And it is a 24-point Georgia lead with 1:23 to go.
DeAndre Swift saying, don't forget about me. We might have some All-Americans in front, but I'm a star too. So is his quarterback, Fromm. Love it.
Welcome back to college football, presented by Kate Jewelers as part of the Jiffy Lube Rivalry Series. Dave Pasch, Greg McElroy, Tom Luganville at Georgia Tech. The Georgia running backs, Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift. Swift getting several carries on that drive, paying it off with a touchdown. And the Georgia Tech coaches told us this week they think Georgia goes 5 deep at running back with Elijah Holyfield and Brian Harrion. At the 12. And of course the Iron Bowl coming up later. Tech runs left. Benson to the 32, picking up 5. All right, time for today's Aflac trivia question. Aflac! We asked this with Miami in mind, okay? Because they lost yesterday. We anticipating Georgia, what happens if Georgia loses? Okay, the last team to lose the regular season finale, then win the national championship. Any thoughts?
I know the answer to this one.
You know the answer for sure. So it's not a guess. You know it.
I know it.
What do you got?
I'm going to go LSU 2007.
First down run for Benson. I'd call it cheating.
No, because I remember they lost to Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, in Arkansas in the final game of the regular season. And then the real interesting part,
don't look at the monitor.
The real interesting part was that they wouldn't have gotten into the national championship had West Virginia not lost to Pitt.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Which Pitt, of course, beat Miami yesterday. So it comes full circle, Dave.
You were like 11 years old at this point. How do you remember all this stuff at such a young age when all this occurred? Marshall, nice run, picking up the first down to the 47-yard line.
Why do you assume he's cheating, Dave? That's not very nice.
And the craziest thing, too, is the best team in the country at the end of the season might have been Georgia. Remember how good they were playing?
Oh, man.
They played against Miami, or Hawaii, I believe, in the Sugar Bowl.
Hey, Tom, I want to ask Greg this. Who was the head coach of LSU when they won it in 2007?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Say that again.
The head coach of LSU in 2007 when they won the national championship.
Lester Miles.
Okay. See if you're listening. What? What was wrong about that question?
Good question.
Okay. Back after this message of word on our ABC stations. All right, so we're having some fun with the Aflac trivia question answer. LSU being the last team to lose the regular season finale to win the national championship. Les Miles is only in a job for a couple of years. I thought one of you might answer Nick Saban. Who are the coaches at Arkansas, Tennessee, and Ohio State?
I know Arkansas was Houston Nutt, Tennessee, Phil Fulmer, and Ohio State. I'll let Lugs have that one.
Dress. Starts with a sweater vest.
Yes.
Marshall on the loose. Inside the 30-yard line. Taquan Marshall. All the way to the 23 before he gets slammed to the ground by DeAndre Walker. Jim Tressel, right? I thought I heard you say Tress, Luke.
I did. Yeah, it's Jim Tressel. I whispered it.
That was when people were thinking, man, the Big Ten's bad. Remember Ohio State got blown out?
Yeah, they got beat bad by LSU, and the year before they got beat bad by Florida. You're right. They had Troy Smith at quarterback who won the Heisman in 06.
Marshall keeps it here, faked the pitch, and held on to the ball with Georgia diving at it. He's to the 21-yard line. Well, the guy that's been the head coach here at Georgia Tech for the last 10 years is Paul Johnson. He's done a terrific job. He's been the ACC Coach of the Year 3 times. He's won at Georgia 3 times. Never beaten them here. In fact, Georgia hasn't lost in Atlanta since '99. But you think about what he did at Navy and the success he had there. How come Ken Niumatalolo of Navy has not gotten a chance? Maybe he doesn't want to leave, but it's a name you never seem to hear. But if Paul Johnson can do it at a school like Georgia Tech, why not Niumatalolo? Well defended by Walker on the quarterback Marshall. It's going to be 3rd and long.
And some people have suggested that maybe Paul Johnson might like to maybe have a new challenge at some point down the road. Some people have suggested maybe at Kansas State when Bill Snyder retires. Ken Niumatalolo, of course, turned down BYU a couple of years ago, a place that he said was his dream job. He decided to stay at Navy. So the triple option offense is alive and well. It's just a matter of where you would want to bring that to town, because it's a question as to whether or not you can win a national championship with it. How high can you go with this style of attack?
3rd and 10. They're in 4-down territory. Marshall to the end zone, and it is intercepted. And Baker takes it out. Tackled at the 15-yard line. Probably not the smartest move to run out of the end zone that deep, but it's the 2nd interception of the season for DeAndre Baker. Georgia Tech trying to get back in the ball game, but Taquan Marshall throws an interception, which might seal the deal. Well, you know how Miami's got the turnover chain? Well, at Georgia, they have these spiked shoulder pads, which you'd see at a Raider game maybe. But you get savage. You get that on your, wear that on your back. DeAndre Baker with the interception. Who came up with this, by the way? I think it's really cool. I think it's great. Great motivation. Not much there on the jet sweep for Crumpton. Take a look at our Pacific Life game summary. Roquan Smith has been everywhere for Georgia. 9 tackles, 3 for loss, and a sack. The balanced offense of Georgia. They've just dominated, period.
They have, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. There have been a few opportunities for Georgia to really try to air it out, but they haven't had to, because they've just been pounding the ball between the tackles with those elite running backs.
And Blake Herring is in the game right now. He collects the pitch, hurdles a defender, and out to the 22-yard line.
I tell you, fellas, you mentioned Roquan Smith. I think he's the best pound-for-pound linebacker that I've seen from field level all year long.
Yeah.
He's that good.
And it's amazing because last year, Tom, I mean, so much was made about Reuben Foster at Alabama and Jared Davis at Florida.
Yep.
And some of the great linebackers at LSU and Ohio State had some really good linebackers as well.
Hassan Reddick at Temple.
Hassan Reddick at Temple on the edge. It's amazing to see Roquan Smith now that some of the elite stardom has kind of disappeared. He has stepped into that role and is by far the best middle linebacker in the game right now.
Fromm on the money. Crumpton with no defender in sight. Only Pater he can see. Touchdown, Georgia, 78 yards. There is a penalty marker in the backfield. Beautiful throw by Jake Fromm.
Personal foul, roughing the passer, number 97 defense. That 15-yard penalty will be assessed on the succeeding kickoff. Touchdown stands.
What a great throw by Jake Fromm. Knowing that he's about to get hit, throwing the corner route perfectly in stride. And nothing but green grass out in front of Crumpton. You can see he gets hit low and high. Well, what I love is he didn't look back at the official. He didn't look at the two guys that hit him. He looked at that ball sailing perfectly into the hands of Crumpton. True competitor and a very accurate throw rewarded with a big touchdown.
And again, the protection for Georgia. That offensive line doing a heck of a job. Fromm with so much time to throw. It's a blowout. 38-7, Georgia on the road. That's great. A lot to get excited about if you're a Georgia fan. They get 38 points on the board. They're playing for the SEC championship next week. A spot in the college football playoff more than likely if they win. They got a quarterback, Jake Fromm, 78-yard touchdown pass, the longest of his career. There's Mercedes-Benz Stadium where the SEC title game will be held, and also the college football playoff national championship game in January.
That might have been Jake Fromm's best throw of the season in terms of what was coming down the barrel. Yeah. The accuracy on the end result, Greg.
I've watched every throw that he's made, and I think his best throw was that flea flicker on the first play of the game against Mississippi State. But that one was close, and you can see obviously what Georgia has in store. And I tell you what, man, defensively, their defense is going to keep them in it. It's just a matter of whether or not they can be effective on first and second down running the football. It's the big key as to whether or not they can go the distance, because they absolutely can based on talent.
Well, our crew was there, Cassidy, in 2014.
Yeah, I remember that.
End of the Michigan game when Barrett is injured, is done for the year. Cardale Jones comes in, throws a pass that looks just awful. And we start talking about, man, how is Ohio State going to do this with this guy? Well, they beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. They beat Alabama, and then they win the college football playoff national championship with a backup quarterback.
Yeah, none of the games that they played in were even close. I know that Alabama game was only a 7-point margin of victory, but it was really a 14-point margin of victory. I mean, that team, that roster in 2014 was so stacked. This Ohio State team, of course, a few more questions, but J.T. Barrett's health, very important. It'll be interesting to see what the diagnosis is on that.
2nd and 7 for Georgia Tech on its 40-yard line with 9 minutes to go. And a huge hit in the backfield as Marshall is leveled by Walker. Boy, it's been a disappointing last couple weeks for Georgia Tech fans. It looked like they were headed for a bowl game. I mean, they had the game against Tennessee at the start of the year that they could have won, lost by a point. At Miami, lose by a point. They beat Virginia Tech, but they just couldn't win on the road. And because the Central Florida game, I don't know that they would have won that game anyway, but because that was canceled, first of all, Georgia Tech doesn't get an opportunity to play that 12th game. And for UCF, I mean, that could have been a challenging game for them. Right now, they're the highest ranked group of 5 team. Running room on 3rd and 8. 4th down for Georgia Tech.
Obviously, Georgia Tech played well at home, this performance notwithstanding, but just couldn't get it done on the road. And they had so many opportunities to finish games. Miami needed a drive and a couple of great plays to set up the game-winning field goal. They fumbled with the ball in their hand against Tennessee, had a chance to potentially win that one. Virginia, I mean, there were so many opportunities for this Georgia Tech team to pick up some victories. Really, they're better than their record might indicate.
Akil Crumpton, who just scored on a 78-yard touchdown pass, is the return man here. And fair caught around the 18-yard line. Looks like Jake Fromm is done for the day. We'll see Jacob Eason. Looks like that's the case. Jake Fromm, terrific day. When Kirby Smart mentioned Fromm yesterday in our conversation with him, he just kept using the word efficient. He was more than that. I mean, he was borderline spectacular at times. He had great offensive line. And so Jacob Eason is in the game at quarterback, and they run Elijah Holyfield on 1st down. And he gets about 4 yards. Well, they thought this was going to be Eason's team coming into the year. He started the opener against Appalachian State, hurt his knee, and has not been back in the lineup save for a play here or there since.
And you feel for that young man. He was the guy coming in, got all the first-team reps all spring, all fall camp. And then early in the game against Appalachian State, he goes down with that knee injury. You just hate it for him. You really do, because you never want to see a guy lose his job because of an injury. It's a no fault of his own. Jake Fromm's come in, seized the reins on the position, and has played at a very high level within this offense.
Well, you made the point earlier that, you know, Kirby Smart said as they run Holyfield again for a first down out to the 35, that the competition never ended. Even though Jake Fromm had won the job, it wasn't as if every single practice it's like, okay, we're riding Fromm and that's it. It was, let's see if Jake Eason can push him a little bit. And there was competition.
There was. And he's a capable thrower. I mean, if you just go down on the field and watch Jacob Eason throw it as compared to Jake Fromm, you would say every single day of the week that Jacob Eason would be your starting quarterback. But it's the little things that Jake Fromm has done so well. Understanding the situation, moving in the pocket when necessary, tucking it and running it when the opportunity is there to pick up some yards with his legs, and then, of course, not putting the ball in a difficult spot by turning it over.
Holyfield on the cutback. It's about 9.
I think the one thing that maybe Jacob Eason has learned this fall is with Jake Fromm coming in and maybe the attention to detail, the little nuances of the position that don't have to do with physical talent. I think probably it's been healthy for Jacob Eason, although unfortunate, to be able to sit back and maybe see a mode of operation, see another guy perform, see situations when you're standing off and you're taking a look and you're not in the mix that hopefully he can grow from going forward.
And they say he's matured a lot through this adversity, and that's a credit to him.
Started all 12 games last year. Eason did at quarterback. Brian Harry, the ball carrier, first down to midfield.
And Tom, so many people have started to speculate, you know, where does Jacob Eason go? Does he stay at Georgia? Is he content continuing to compete with the position? Will he be on campus and on the roster next year? I don't know the answer to those things, but he's handled this situation, and it's a difficult situation, beautifully, and you got to give him a lot of credit for that. I think he's earned a lot of people's respect for the way he's handled it, kind of drifted from the spotlight into the shadows, and has supported the freshman Jake Fromm all the way.
You saw the last win over Alabama for Georgia was 2007. Holyfield trying to get outside, steps out, so that'll stop the clock.
There's obviously that long conversation, too, where a Nick Saban disciple has never beaten him. 0-11. Most recently, Jimbo Fisher at the beginning of the season at Florida State. So Kirby Smart has a chance next week, if in fact Alabama beats Auburn today, to become the first Nick Saban disciple to dethrone his mentor, and they have the roster to do it. There is no doubt. It's going to come down to execution, and that's why you love a matchup like you're going to see next week, whether it's Alabama, Auburn against Georgia. It's all about execution, who plays best on Saturday.
Is this the best offensive line that we've seen in the SEC this year?
It's awfully close. It's awfully close, and it's truly amazing what they've done. I mean, that was a hindrance last year. It really was, and now it's become a real strength and an asset to a national championship contender.
And the Governor's Cup Trophy, which was it started in 1995, even though this series goes back to 1893. Georgia is 16-6 over Georgia Tech since they started the award, and the Bulldogs are going to get it again here in 2017 after losing in Athens last year. Final minute here, one more snap, and this one's over. And Uga can celebrate with a big bone tonight because they're going to be 11-1. Now 4th down here, so I guess they got to figure out how they want to handle this. Probably 2 plays. If they don't get it, then Georgia Tech will take over on downs and run a play or just take a knee. But got to at least snap it here for Georgia with about 12 seconds. They run Holyfield, and he does not get the first down, so the clock will stop on the change of possession. 7 seconds left. Georgia Tech's running on the field. The players are ready for this one to be over, but they got to snap it one more time because of the turn. Impressive showing by the Bulldogs, and that is going to be a great. I mean, there's a great game coming up in the Iron Bowl, but that game next week, between either Georgia and Auburn, Georgia, Alabama. Spectacular.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting too. I mean, if Alabama and Auburn is as good as we all think it has a chance to be, Georgia, their starters got a quarter worth of rest here today. Their backups have been playing a majority of the fourth quarter and some of the third, so maybe something to keep an eye on as far as fresh legs in next week's game. But everyone's beat up, everyone's tired at this point of the season. It's really going to come down to who execute at the highest level next week for the SEC title.
Sometimes playing a triple option team before you have the big game as they fumble the exchange. Sometimes that's difficult. I'm not sure that's really going to be a problem for Georgia. This one's over. Georgia's 11-1. The third time in school history that they have an 11-1 record. They'll go for win number 12 next week, and they play in the SEC championship game for the first time in 5 years. Their last SEC title was 2005. Their last national title, 1980. Here's Tom.
Well, Coach, is this one of those games where you just wipe your brow after and say, whoosh?
Yeah, you do. They got a good football team. They run a very hard offense to prepare for. Our kids took the challenge head on, did a good job preparing for it. Thought we controlled the ball offensively in the second half. So those are some good things.
As far as how this team's overall performance was throughout the entire season, it's a long gauntlet. Now you head into the SEC championship game. How would you assess your kids?
Our kids have played really hard. They've gotten better throughout the year. They bought into what we're trying to do as a program, and we're really excited about where we are, and we got a great challenge next week.
Hey, go enjoy it, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Final score 38-7. It was 14-7 late first half. Then Georgia was able to tack on a field goal 17-7 and then outscored the Yellow Jackets 21-0 in the second half. College football scoreboard is up next on ABC, and then at the bottom of the hour, Wisconsin and Minnesota for the Axe. This has been a presentation of ESPN. For Tom Luganville, Greg McElroy, our entire crew, I'm Dave Pasch. So long from Atlanta. Georgia keeps its college football playoff hopes alive. The SEC championship game is next on the docket. So long for now from Atlanta.